Okay.
So, All right. Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you all this Friday for our Facebook Live. Today's theme is Red Ribbon Week. My name is Julie Yerkes, and I'm the Community Engagement Lead for the Partnership at Drug Free New Hampshire. And we're doing Facebook Lives every Friday this month of October because October is such a prevention-packed month. Last week, we discussed Sober October, and the week before, bullying prevention with the New Hampshire Teen Institute. And today, we're here to talk about Red Ribbon Week, which is coming up starting tomorrow and goes all next week. And we have our friend Brian Daniels, who is a student assistance counselor at Runlet Middle School in Concord, New Hampshire. Next Friday, we'll feature communities coordinating drug take-back days, and we hope you'll join us. So if you missed one, you can always look at the recording, and you can post questions, and we'll get back to you. And today, let us know where you're tuning in from, and any questions you have, any comments you have, and any suggestions. And if you ever want to be a guest on our Facebook Fridays, please let us know. We'd love to highlight your work and that of your community. So, like I said, we're here today to talk about Red Ribbon Week. What was started initially in the 80s in response to the murder of a DEA agent. Angered parents and youth and communities really across the country wore red ribbons to raise awareness of this killing and really the negative impacts of drug use. Has grown into really a opportunity for individuals and communities to raise awareness about substance use prevention, to engage each other in conversation, and to really educate youth and encourage that participation in those prevention activities. So I'm really excited to have Brian here today. And thank you for joining us. He's actually taking some time out of a training. He brought his visuals with him off-site to be with us here today. So welcome, Brian.
Thank you.
So, Brian, I did mention that you are a student assistance program counselor. Could you tell us a little bit about what that role is and what that means? It's a little different than a guy, it's quite a bit different than other roles in the school.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you, Julie. So first of all, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
It's a privilege to be on here this morning. Never in my wildest dreams did I think I would be participating in anything like this. But here I am, and I am a student assistance program counselor. I work here in Concord at our one and only middle school, Runlet Middle School. We have about 900 kids, and this is my fourth year. So I had a big career change a few years back, and here I am, smack dab in the middle of the middle schoolers. So at Runlet, as a SAP, a SAP counselor, we're all about prevention, and that's our focus. We really like to talk about the protective factors and the risk factors, and obviously we try to promote the protective factors, which for example, parental monitoring, connection with the students. And I really have to take pause here because for me, I in my head at least, I have rewritten my job description, and my job is to connect with as many kids in school as I possibly can, whether there's addiction in their family or not, whether they're using, experimenting, or having a hard time. I want to be that, and I am that one of the trusted adults in the school that kids can come to. I see such a vast variety of kids from all different backgrounds, some horrific, some perfect family lives, but they're 13, so 11, 12, 13, 14-year-olds, and it's an awkward time. And I've been there, and I tell them that, and I do my very best to meet them where they're at. And of course, when I went back to school, I took multiple counseling courses, and I try to implement that. Be caring and understanding, empathetic, and just listen to them. And because I am a counselor, there's the confidentiality piece, which I always open up with my kids as soon as they come into my office, whether they have issues or not. I still go through that whole thing. Until we talk a lot about self-harm. We talk about what I can keep to myself, what I can take to my grave, if you will, and the things that I cannot, and that I have to talk to administration about, or the parents. And when I was their age, we didn't have somebody like me at my school. So this, and I don't really preach it, but they're super lucky that they can come to me, and they can unload, they can ask me questions, and I ask a lot of questions. And if they don't want to answer, I say that's perfectly fine. And a really good example, last year I was giving out red ribbons, and one of the kids that I work with, really bad home situation. Mom was incarcerated for assaulting the dad. It was pretty bad, and this kid was really traumatized. And he's like, I don't want to wear the ribbon. I'm like, that's fine. I understand, and that's okay. And I do have connections with these kids, and it's a privilege. So
Yeah.
that's, I mean, kind of in a nutshell. I could certainly talk more about that, but I'm happy to go to the next question.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I think, the two specific protective factors you mentioned are really important, for today, as well. And I just, that connecting with the students is so important, because positive school connectedness is one of the most important protective factors we can have for our kids, that our kids feel safe and seen and cared about at school, is critical. So I'm so happy to hear you're doing that. I know that you went on a hike with a group of, the whole class this week, which, is just a wonderful opportunity to see people in a whole different atmosphere, outside of school, out in nature. You can really get to know somebody at a different level in those environments. So
Absolutely.
Thanks for doing that work.
Of course.
And then you mentioned parental monitoring, and I think that really connects with Red Ribbon Week, in that, Red Ribbon Week raises awareness, and it's important for parents to have information in order to be able to be taken care of and watching their kids, and really setting, high expectations around healthy behavior, and keep an eye on that. So that's really important. So tell me a little bit about how Red Ribbon Week does play into your role, into your work.
Okay, so when I started at Runlit, it was the fall of 2019, and if I'm being honest, I had never heard of Red Ribbon Week. I've seen a lot of ribbons in my day: red, pink, green, yellow, but I didn't know what the red meant. And when I first saw the ribbon, I thought, well, maybe it's breast cancer, but obviously that's a pink. But I had to research a little bit, and I have wonderful supervisors through Second Start, which I'm a contracted employee, so I don't actually work for the school system. I work for Second Start, which is an alternative high school based in Concord. And we've had a SAP at Runlit for over 30 years. It wasn't always full-time. I think they went to full-time probably 5 or 6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago. And so luckily now I'm in the school, 5 days a week, 8 to 4, basically. So I'm there. So doing my research for Red Ribbon Week obviously started in California after the DEA agent, Kiki, I can't remember his last name. Was it Kiki? Was murdered, investigating a marijuana cartel. They just brought this awareness to the problems and the issues with drug use, and the whole, just from the very beginning to the purchasing, to the distribution, to the using. And so my first Red Ribbon Week, I simply went into the cafeteria and I set up my board with a little bit of some fun facts, and I just gave out ribbons, and I would ask the students, individually. I would ask, what do you think Red Ribbon Week is? And, of course, no one knew. And I just explained to them what we did and trying to promote prevention and having Red Week as the most widely known prevention platform campaign. It's over 30 years. So in giving out the red ribbon, what that did for me and the students, it opened up an instant communication with, oh, my older brother, struggled with heroin, but he went to treatment, and I'm like, oh, so you're familiar with treatment, and all of these kids are super, super open with me about their experiences, whether it's a parent being incarcerated. I've worked with students whose parents have been, suicide, overdose, accidental overdose. Just horrific things, and the kids were very open, and most of the kids are wearing the ribbons proudly, whether it's on their shirt, their hat, their backpacks. And I have kids that are showing addictive behaviors. They had 7, 8, 9, 10 ribbons. It's like it's real. The addiction. It's not just drugs. We see it with the telephones, the technology, the laptops, the gaming, all of that. So the Red Ribbon Week, the campaign, it just gives me a chance to be in my community, out and about in my school, and I can say after 3 full years, so many of the kids, so many more, they know who Mr. Daniels is. They know where my office is. They know what Red Ribbon Week is, and they're looking forward to it. And some of the kids that I work with that do struggle with substances, it's ironic, but they help me put up flyers around the school, like this one, it's coming, you know what I mean? And I have 6th graders. They're like, Mr. Daniels, what's Red Ribbon Week all about? I'm like, well, it's coming and you're going to find out,
Right.
and so it's beautiful. It really is beautiful. The questions that these kids ask me, and we get into the debate between choice and addiction, and they have been heated, especially the 8th graders. They're passionate about, you got the kids that who don't have that parental monitoring, that are doing what they're doing, and their parents don't know. And not to really get into it too much, but I had a parent meeting this week with a administrator, and the because it's confidential, I know so much more than the parent knows, and the parent thinks they know, but they don't. And so, I'm not ashamed, and to reduce the stigma, I don't tell my kids, but my colleagues know that I'm in recovery. And my hope is that in 5, 6, 7 years, I'm still out there in Concord when these kids show up looking for help, and they're going to remember me, that I was kind, that I listened to them. And even sometimes when they tell me what they're doing, I always say, listen, I don't support that, but thank you for telling me. And we have a SAP at the high school, at Concord High School, Amy Tucker, who is my supervisor. And when they get up to the high school, they already have this relationship with me that's going to continue with Mrs. Tucker, and that's a beautiful thing. That's just a continuation. I plant the seeds, and Mrs. Tucker waters them and provides the sunshine.
Thank you. And you bring up a couple of interesting points, and this is going to be a little bit more around student assistance and your role. And I don't want to talk too long about it, but I think this opportunity to connect, right, with Red Ribbon Week and raising that awareness and answering questions and being a resource is so important. But I do hear, as a parent, some things that might make me uncomfortable, that kids might be sharing information about their family with you. And as a parent, that might make some uncomfortable. And can you tell us a bit about how you handle that professionally, and your approach? Because there is stigma around incarceration. There is stigma around, violence at home. And How do you handle that so that, number one, the families aren't being stigmatized, right, for having needs and difficulties at home, but also that the kids aren't being um, that this is support and not labeling or do you know what I'm saying? Like a lot of times we don't talk about the issues at home openly because we don't want our kids to have the negative impact of people knowing what's going on. But if they're opening up to you, how is that a benefit and not uh, labeling them? Does that
Well,
question make sense? Do you
there's a,
hear the concern
I do it.
people might have?
There's a lot to that, and so my experience with the parents that I've talked to, um, have been unbelievably supportive of what I do. And some of the parents know that I'm in recovery. You know, Concord's a small place, you know, and these parents they're grateful. I have not come across a parent that has any issue with their kids talking to me. And the kids, it's on the kids if they want to talk to their parents about if they're seeing me. You know, if I have a sixth grader that comes to me, the I need to reach out to the parent to make sure it's okay that I talk to the student. You know what I mean? If they're 11 or under. Once they're 12, we've got confidentiality and but these kids, they're so open, you know, and I don't tell the kids I'm in recovery. What I tell the kids is when I was their age, I made a lot of bad decisions, and I'm just trying to help prevent them from making the same decision. However, I know I don't preach to the kids. They're curious. They want to know, and I can't change that. That's just who they are. And I do, you know, that I live my life today trying to reduce the stigma around addiction, and you know, some parents are oblivious. Every year, I send home a newsletter to the families or the guardians, and you know, describing what the program is and what I do, and you know, and and luckily. I've had a ton of support from the kids and the
Right.
parents and certainly the staff
Wonderful.
the staff at Runlet. It's taken a while. The first year was really
Sure.
rough. We were
Yeah.
sent home in March, and I had a lot of opposition from faculty that had been in the building for a long time. But
Yeah.
when the faculty have when they've seen that I'm not just pulling the kids out of class to have a good time, like this is we're talking about the stuff that they don't want to talk about that needs to be talked about. And I think on some level the parents understand that because some of the kids are not going to talk to their parents about some of the things that they talk to me about.
Right. Yeah. So thank you for that. And I think it's really important. I love how non-judgmental and non-stigmatizing, and that you've had your lived experience. And I think that that's a real good safety. That this is a really, you know, that there is that confidentiality where you're not sharing what's told with other staff members, and so that reduces that ability to label or stigmatize kids based on, you know, home life, and that's and they're just getting support, right, and a connection and a safe place to share what's hurtful and painful so they can be more present at school and do better. And that's just such a beautiful thing. Um, you know, you shared some of the positive outcomes you've seen from Red Ribbon Week, you know, that you really connect with the kids and that you can share information and you can really get some good messages across, you know. And I guess to end, what I'd really like to ask is what are some messages that we at home, you know, if we see our kid come home, you know, with a red ribbon, or we drive by a display next week in our communities. I know sometimes buildings are lit up in red.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what are some conversation key messages we can have with our kids and with our peers about um, prevention awareness? You know, what are some what if you could broadcast some messages to help really reinforce that you know it's harmful and we want you to be the healthiest you can be.
That's a great segue because I tell a lot of my kids, I said, I am here to support you. I want you to be successful. Like that's one of my messages. And when and if you try substances, because the whole Red Ribbon Week is all about prevention. And again, the protective factors and the risk factors and the awareness and the communication, open communication. So if I had come home, I would not, when I was 12 years old, I would not be wearing a red ribbon home. I would not because of the things I was doing. And my parents, I had a wonderful stepfather and a wonderful mother, but they were, my stepfather was checked out because he was much older than my mother. And my mother had her own issues, her own demons, if you will. She loved me unconditionally, but she drank and she smoked and she misused medications, but I did what I wanted to do and I got away with it. I was really good at getting away with it. So getting back to the parental monitoring is just knowing where your kids are. And sometimes you can't help. Things happen in homes where the parents are there. And that's just a fact. And parents don't want to hear that. I mean, they have accountability, absolutely. But some of these kids, they're pretty smart and they're cunning and they're tricky and I don't even know. But if you
Well,
the
we were
kid,
all teenagers, so we all might know a little bit how we can be, right?
I think so. I think so.
And the
Yeah,
best parts of being a teenager.
absolutely. But if it just the message is, if a child ends up at home with a red ribbon and they can open up a conversation with their parent about the prevention and the bringing more awareness, like that's key. Reducing the stigma. We all make mistakes, and a lot of these parents are making mistakes, and they've used or they're using, but they're a lot there. I've met a lot of parents in recovery or who have family members in recovery, and I think most of the people do appreciate the prevention portion of Red Ribbon Week and just the awareness, talking about it. Like I said, I have these signs all over the school. They know it's coming. And, I get on Red Ribbon Week, I'll get on the microphone at the beginning of the day, explain what the week is about. We have coloring sheets that I hand out to the teachers and the kids, the kids color. We've got word searches, all
Yeah.
about educating. And I wanted to share this because this is going to be huge. This was from Belmont High School. It's a board and with sticky notes and the board. The question is, how have drugs and alcohol affected your life? And these kids, it's going to be anonymous. I'm going to ask them if they want to put their name on the back of the sticky note. That'd be great, but they don't have to. And this is going to be in the main corridor. So kids,
Yeah.
all kids go through this corridor every single day, and they're going to see and they're going to be thinking like, what is this all about? And I avoid trying to be preachy, but I let them know how important it is, and it's good to ask questions, and it's good to have
Right.
answers.
Right. And I think this year's theme, celebrate life, right? Live drug free is oops, is he gone? Okay, maybe it's just me now. Um, well, I thank Brian for being here. And I guess I'll close it out with just kind of commenting on the theme, which is, celebrate life. Oh, there he's back. Celebrate life, live drug free. And I think that's such an important thing that, that they're living your life drug free, and some of those examples of how those healthy ways to interact with people, those healthy ways of getting that natural high, you'll hear that.
Can
And
I say one thing? Can I say
yeah,
one thing?
please.
So I tell these kids, like, we went on this hike, Mount Major on Wednesday, and I said to the kids, and I'm not even talking about addiction. I'm like, these are memories that you're gonna have. Then you're sore, but you did it like this. You didn't think you
Yeah,
could do this, and you're sore. But look at the payoff. Look at the view of Lake Winnipesaukee.
yeah,
Right? These are things you'll always have. And these other kids that are using substances, mainly THC, marijuana, weed, whatever you want to call it, like, you think you're having fun and you're laughing, but you don't remember what you're doing. I mean, you
yeah,
cannot compare that to the view and the experience that we had. But again, I try to not be preachy. It's like, you know, it's your
It's
journey.
information.
It's information, and it's like this. That's all I can do. It's like
Yep.
they're thirsty. I bring them this beautiful, sparkling bucket of spring water. I'm like, here it is. If you want it,
Yep.
give it a shot. If not,
Right.
someone else will drink it.
And I think that that's a really important part with this age, developmentally, is increasing knowledge, right? Increasing awareness and, increasing expectations for, healthy behavior, right? And not right. Just these are the expectations. This is the knowledge, and here are some skills to help you achieve that. And that's such an important part with adolescents around everything, right? If you're teaching math, if you're teaching phys ed, like whatever you're doing here's the expectation, here are the skills, and here's the support to do it. And
I've had kids come into my office concerned about classmates. And then we try to bring that classmate in, and I say, tell your friend that you care about them. Tell your friend you're worried about them, and that's challenging. And a part of my job is giving these kids, exposing them to the life skills that are going to help them be successful.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. And I really appreciate it. Thanks for bringing this really important awareness week into the community, into our kids' lives, and I hope that those of us who are hearing this can continue the conversation with our young people, with our peers, with our friends, about how, what we can be doing to live a healthy and drug-free life where we celebrate, right? And create those memories. And
that's right. That's right. that we remember. Uh-oh. Where'd you go? Oh boy.
Oh, no. Okay. We're having lots of technical difficulties, and it's almost, one last thing. Here we go.
Can I? So
yeah.
I was on the Cape a few weeks ago, Cape Cod, and I was at the dump, and we have a swap shop, and I was poking around the swap shop. I'm not making this up. I found this bottle.
Oh.
You can't tell me I'm not in the right place. You just can't.
Yeah.
Okay. Nope. That's all.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Brian Daniels, for joining us. I really appreciate all the work we are doing, and enjoy the rest of your day.
I will. We'll talk soon.
And happy Friday, everyone. Let us know any questions or comments you have, and we'll be in touch.
Thanks, Julie. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.